Choosing Family by ginnyrules27, Chapter 12. Hades could honestly say that he had not expected that question to come from Mal. At the very least, he had expected it when she was a lot older, maybe 13 or so. But he saw no reason to lie to the girl, especially since she was coming to him for the answers. If anything, she'd probably be a lot more likely to believe him since she was coming to him instead of vice versa.
"Yes, Mal, I am,"
he said after a few minutes of silence, giving a nod as if accentuating his point. Mal tilted her head as if in thought, and Hades couldn't help but be amused.
"So she did get something from me, at least behaviour-wise,"
he thought, considering his daughter was pretty much a Maleficent clone, though the purple hair was entirely her own. Her green eyes, though, were 100% Maleficent. However, Mal's eyes shone with a fire that was different than that of his ex-wife's. While Maleficent seemed to shine with rage, Mal's shone with a curiosity and a passion that had yet to be extinguished by life on the Isle or with Maleficent. One could argue, however, that Mal's lean frame could come from Hades.
"Compared to my brothers, I'm not the most muscular of gods,"
Hades thought.
"but the Fae were always seen as lean creatures themselves. Maleficent was no bodybuilder after all. Plus, Mal's been on the Isle where rotten food is the main course. As much as I can try with the restaurant, I'm still working with the food Origin sends us. Gods, if only I could get my hands on something fresh."
"Why did you leave?" Mal's voice was soft and broke Hades out of his thoughts. Mother always said that my father walked out on her and I." Hades sighed and walked around the counter. This was a conversation that he would need to be sitting down to have. Quickly walking to the door and locking it as to not be disturbed, he sat down at one of the tables. Mal quickly followed suit, scrambling into one of the chairs as fast as she could, as to not delay getting the information.
"I'm not going to lie and say I tried to stay," Hades said once Mal got settled.
Hades had never noticed before how Mal seemed to be too small to sit comfortably in the chairs.
"She must have been sitting on her knees,"
he thought, and made the resolve to get something to act as a booster. Maybe a phone book, or don't throw enough of those away that he could pretend it was extra padding for the seat.
"In fact, I left your mother when you were about 3 weeks old."
"Why?" Mal asked.
"Your mother, she's not the easiest person to get along with. I didn't want to have you live in a home where your parents were always fighting,"
Hades told her, even if that wasn't truthfully the reason why he had left. He just couldn't stand being around Maleficent a moment longer. However, while he may have hated the fairy, he wasn't going to trash Maleficent in front of Mal. Though, judging by Mal's comment about him, it was clear Maleficent did not return the favour.
"But, Mal, I want you to know that I never left you. In fact, you lived with me until you were 4 months old."
Mal bit her lip, unsure as to whether she should believe him. After all, she was living with Maleficent without him. That was a pretty clear sign that he had left her behind. But Maleficent always lies, she thought. Why would we believe her now? After all, she said my father was weak and mortal. It certainly takes strength to tell Maleficent no, and clearly he is no mortal if he's a god. Why are we believing him, though? He could be lying to try to gain power over the Isle. If he was looking for a power grab, he would have claimed that he was my father the moment Maleficent allowed me to walk freely around the Isle. He probably would have told Uma, and he would have run and probably grabbed me when I ran into his legs all those months ago. But Maleficent... Screw Maleficent! If you want to believe the dragon, then go ahead. But I say it's safer bet with Hades. Why did that change now? I mean, why am I living with Mother right now? Did you change your mind? Mal asked, breaking herself out of her thoughts, and Hades sighed. That had to be the question that was most like a slap in the face. He would never change his mind about wanting Mal.
"Your mother had, let's call it a change of heart, and wanted you back," Hades said, fudging the truth a little.
He didn't want to, but how could he explain to his 5-year-old that she had basically been a hostage for 5 years? That the only reason why he didn't steal her back was because of the threat to her safety.
"Due to the registry from Oridon and the fact that your mother only had herself listed as your parent, I had no choice but to let her have you. Otherwise she might have issued a complaint to forward on.
The registry? Mal asked, tilting her head a little again. She had heard Maleficent talk about it before, but she couldn't really understand what it was.
Hades chuckled a little at her reaction. It's how Auradon keeps track of the growing population of the Isle, he said, and Mal nodded.
How do they keep track of the population going in the other direction? Mal asked, and it was Hades' turn to tilt his head in a slight confusion. You know, all the kids who are dying because of the lack of food, Mal clarified, and Hades stilled.
It wasn't a question unexpected from a 5-year-old. Then again, I guess when your father's the god of the dead, you're going to notice the death around you a lot more, he thought with an inward frown. I'm not sure, Mal, he said softly, and then, desperate to change the topic, he said, I'm sure you've got a lot more questions.
Mal shrugged and leaned back in her chair. So, what am I?
What do you mean? He asked, raising an eyebrow.
You know, am I a demigoddess? A fae? I'm clearly not mortal. Mal elaborated on it, and Hades nodded, realising that Mal was asking.
Technically, you'd be a demigoddess, but since you're also half fae, it's hard to say for sure. Though that brings up an important point. Mal, you can tell people you're my daughter if you want to, but I would advise caution.
Why? Mal asked. I'd be one of the few kids who knows who both my parents are on the Isle. That's rare.
Hades chuckled. True. But the last thing I want is for a target to be put on your back because of me. The barrier severely limits your magic. Oh sure, they can blame that all magic. Oh sure, they can claim all that all magic is suppressed, but there's no way to truly suppress a god's magic. Fairy magic is only so powerful, even with Zeus aiding in the creation of the barrier.
Unless they had that potion you fed to Hercules, Mal pointed out, and Hades frowned. That wasn't really something he wanted to be reminded of by his 5-year-old. Plus, Steph would probably tell him that Mal shouldn't refer to her cousin in that way. That Hercules would be a good ally if Mal ever got off the Isle, yada yada yada. Speaking of Persephone, I should probably bring Mal to the underworld. Steph's been dying to talk to Mal. The only reason she hasn't is because of Maleficent spies being all over the place. If one of them caught her talking to Mal, it might not have been good for Mal. Yeah, well, they only made one of those potions, and I don't remember where I had gotten it from in the first place, Hades said, putting himself out of his thoughts. Good thing, otherwise Zeus would probably have insisted I take it before they put me on the Isle, he thought, before mentally shaking his head. The last thing he wanted to do was think about his brother while talking to his daughter. So, while I can't turn into a giant fireball, I can still use a bit of my flame. He conjured a small blue fireball to prove his point, before extinguishing it, not wanting to risk Mal getting burnt. Oh, that is that old saying about fire not being able to burn a dragon. You sure you want to risk that? Mal getting hurt over that? You don't even know if that saying is true. Will I ever be able to do that? Mal asked, her eyes wide in wonder, and putting Hades from his thoughts. I see no reason why not, he told her. You're my daughter, after all. God, it feels so good to say that to her, and know that she'll actually remember it, Hades thought with a smile. His daughter. No matter how hard she tried, Maleficent would never be able to take this moment away from him. Mal paused for a moment, as if in thought. Is that why my eyes have been glowing? Mal asked softly. It wasn't Fae powers at all. It was my god powers. Why did Maleficent tell me my father was a god? Doesn't that seem like something I have a right to know? It's possible, Hades said. Though it's also possible that it's your Fae powers coming in. I doubt your mother has explained anything to you, though. Mal shook her head and Hades sighed. Of course Maleficent hadn't explained anything to Mal. That would be too much of a risk of the older fairy. So, it could either be my god powers or my Fae powers causing my eyes to glow. Mal sighed. Great, glad we cleared that up. Hades chuckled. Well, we've got time to figure out what's causing your eyes to glow.
You're half god after all.
Mal nodded and grew silent for a moment. So, what do I call you? You know, when we're alone like this.
Whatever you want, Hades told her.
Mal nodded and bit her lip in thought. She wasn't sure what she was going to call Hades. What about Father? After all, we call Maleficent Mother. But that's only in public, and it's because Maleficent would beat us bloody if we didn't. Remember when we were 4 and we called her by her name in front of the evil queen? Am I positive the beating wasn't because we disrespected her in front of the evil queen rather than forgetting to call her mother? I'm pretty sure the broken ankle you got didn't care about the details as to why it was received. Okay, we're getting off topic anyway. True, but what about Dad? You know, since it's pretty much the opposite situation that we have with Maleficent. He acts like our father in private, but he has to pretend otherwise in public. So why not call him Father? After all, he's only really been our father for the past few weeks. Hades watched as Mal seemed to think over what she was going to call him. He honestly didn't care as long as Mal was in his life. Father? Mal said softly, and Hades almost missed it.
I'm sorry?
Mal rolled her eyes. Father! That's what I'll call you. Hades nodded.
Okay, Father it is.
After all, Wonderbreath called Zeus Father, as did Trident to Poseidon. It was only fitting that Mal would call Hades Father after all. Hang on, Mal said slowly as if coming to a realization. Does this mean Uma's my cousin? Since her grandfather's Poseidon?
Yes, the little squidling's your cousin.
Hades nodded with a small smile. While he didn't have the closest relationship with Ursula or Uma, he was happy his daughter had a friendship within the family. What about Panic's kid? Virgil? Mal asked. Everyone knows he's the son of Vanessa, and since Vanessa was just Ursula's human form that somehow got split from her when the barrier went up.
I'm still trying to figure that one out, Hades told her. For now I'm leaning toward yes, but I still want to do some research into it. Gods, if that's true, I'd have to call Panic my nephew-in-law. Is that even a thing? Knowing my luck, it would be. Panic's a good minion. A bit panicky, but he's panicky, but he's less likely to keep things from you than Pain is. Thank God's Pain never reproduced. But I still shouldn't tell them? Mal asked, once again pulling Hades out of his thoughts. That we're cousins, I mean. It's up to you, Mally,
he said, his old nickname for her slipping out, as if it had been weeks instead of years since he'd used it.
Like I said, there's a risk of a target getting put on your back if word gets out that you were the daughter of Hades.
Mal nodded. Oh. Well, I guess it can't hurt to keep it to myself for a while. Besides, if we still don't know if Virgil is my cousin, then we shouldn't get his hopes up.
Exactly.
Hades chuckled at the complete innocence in that logic. Maleficent hadn't completely twisted his daughter. Speaking of mothers and daughters.
Oh, Mal,
Hades asked as he got up.
You want to go meet your stepmother?
Mal smiled and took his offered hand. Yes, father. Hades couldn't help but grin at the ease of the word coming out of his daughter's mouth.
Then let's go.
They would probably hear Persephone's squeal of joy from Auradon when she saw Mal. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one because, oh, that is so innocently cute, heartbreaking and gorgeous all at the same time. Little Mal. I'm trying to keep her sarcastic but still innocent with my voice. It's harder to do than you think. I'm very quippy and I'm getting used to doing the baby voice because of Nate from the Avengers vs. Peter Factor and all my Canto fix with Antonio. But it's actually surprisingly hard. So, yeah. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell to get notified. Blah, blah, blah. I love you guys to pieces. Take care. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Au revoir.